The NBA is back. The Bulls are back. The Bulls kick off their season tomorrow against the New Orleans Pelicans. And as I've said before, I'm actually more excited to see this team show up compared to the roster that was out there last 2 seasons with how frustrating it was to watch that group. But in any event, one of the big deadlines heading into the season that passed yesterday were those rookie contract extensions for the draft class of 2021. And while a lot of last-minute deals went through, like that of Jalen Suggs, Alperen Şengün, Jalen Green, to name a few, one player that did not reach an agreement on a contract extension was Josh Giddey, who will now become a restricted free agent heading into next summer. So what does all of that mean? How do the signings from other players of his draft class impact what Giddey could potentially get? And how does this impact the Bulls going forward beyond this upcoming season? Well, let's talk about it. So what's going on, everyone? You're listening to Bulls Central here. Hope you're all doing well. Before I continue on with the video though, a big shout out to our sponsor, Prize Picks. Now I'm sure most of you know Prize Picks already, but for those that aren't familiar with them, it is the best place to get real money sports action, the most fun and exciting way to get in on the action while you get to watch your favorite sports and players. It's pretty simple. You pick more or less on at least 2 players for a shot to win up to 100 times your cash with as little as 4 correct picks. With the NBA season just around the corner, there are going to be so many opportunities to get in on the action. You think Zach LaVine is going to score more than 25 points in the season opener? Run your game all season long on Prize Picks. But not only that, if you sign up today, you'll get $50 instantly when you play $5. You don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus. It is guaranteed. I used Prize Picks to kick off the football season. It was super easy to use. A lot of fun to track along the way during the game, and I can't wait to get started with some of the basketball picks as well. So download the app today and use the promo code BULLCENTRAL to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. I'll leave a link to the site and the code in the description. Now, what I'll say first is this. When it comes to the Bulls extending Josh Giddey prior to the start of this upcoming season to his rookie scale deal, I'm not surprised at all that the Bulls didn't reach an agreement on an extension. Historically speaking, this is how the Bulls operate. They prefer to let the market dictate a player's value and prefer to give it one more year of data to really truly see the potential of said player has on the roster. If you remember, they did this with Patrick Williams and Kobe White, opting to wait, having them play out their 4th year and then extending them as a restricted free agent. They also did the same thing with Lauri Markkanen, choosing not to extend him early and then executing that sign and trade with the Cavs when Lauri was a restricted free agent. And I know most know this, but the difference between a restricted free agent versus an unrestricted free agent is that in restricted free agency, the player has the ability to go out and seek offers from other teams. They can get offers from other teams, but their current team has the ability to match any offer sheet they get and retain the player. The Bulls actually did this with Zach LaVine back in the day when he was a restricted free agent, and Zach got an offer from the Sacramento Kings, which the Bulls then matched to keep him. But anyway, all of this is to say I'm not surprised Giddey and the Bulls didn't reach an agreement on an extension, especially when we learned that Giddey was seeking a contract in the $30 million a year range, which is incredibly steep for a player that was coming off a down year and a player who didn't look that good in the preseason. Don't get me wrong, Giddey is a very talented player. I'm actually higher on Giddey than most Bulls fans. Giddey does fit the style and pace the Bulls want to play going forward, but he has some glaring flaws to his game, specifically his defense and his shooting. And the Bulls paying Giddey that kind of money, which would go into effect the following season, the 25-26 season, the Bulls, at least at this point in time, because they haven't traded either of these guys, they would still have LaVine and Vucevic under contract. And with Giddey at $30 million, that would likely put them over the luxury tax, assuming they're going to need to sign other players in the meantime. If Lonzo walks, Torrey Craig walks, same with Duarte, Javon Carter will likely pick up his player option. The point is, they would have a lot of money on their books in that season. And then also staring at the contract extensions for Kobe and Ayo, who are most certainly going to want to get paid after exceeding and outplaying their current deals. And the Bulls were never going to do that, knowing the uncertainty of whether or not they'll be able to trade Zach and Vooch, and more importantly, not knowing how Giddey is going to fit with this overall roster. Like, it's a huge risk to extend a guy, even if he was the guy you were eyeing and wanted in a trade deal, and you traded your most valuable asset to get him, but to extend him on a massive contract when you haven't even seen him play with the team outside of just the preseason is a huge risk. Now, I'm sure the Bulls would have extended Giddey if they were able to get him on a very reasonable deal that was below his market, but we knew that was never going to happen. Not with the kind of money being thrown around, especially when it comes to players in his draft class, which leads me into my next point. Other teams, when it comes to paying this class, did not do the Bulls any favors. When you max out guys like Franz Wagner, Evan Mobley, Scotty Barnes, Cade Cunningham, players that have a lot of upside, yes, but still unproven, or paying Jalen Suggs a $150 million contract. Jalen Suggs, a great defender, but he's also a very flawed player. If he's making $30 million, Josh Giddey is going to be expecting the same kind of money, if not more. Because while Giddey is very limited defensively, he's very gifted offensively for his playmaking ability, but also his size and strength to really impact the floor. I'm not saying Josh Giddey should get a contract in the range of $30 million a year. I do think that would be an overpay unless he really exceeds expectations this season, but the market's been set when you see the type of contracts being handed out to players in that draft class. The bigger question now is, well, what does this mean for the Bulls going forward? Because they just traded for this guy. He's only 22 years old. The risk of trading for him was knowing that he was going to be up for an extension, and why even trade for him if you're not willing to commit to him long term? Now, I do think the Bulls will pay him unless he just absolutely bombs this season. The Bulls will pay him. They'll see what his market value is going into the offseason. They'll likely do what they did with Pat, where they pay him before he actually becomes a restricted free agent, and they're probably going to give him a pretty hefty payday, something in the neighborhood of what Suggs got at 5 years, $150 million. Maybe even more, because we know the salary cap is going to increase, which is going to drive up the market price on all of these players. And if Giddey is going to be making that kind of money, it's going to mean a few things. The Bulls will have to trade LaVine. They're not going to be able to remain under the luxury tax while still having LaVine on the books and paying Giddey north of $30 million, as well as the $18 million they owe Patrick Williams. And they're going to have to trade Vucevic, who will be making a little over $21 million in the 25-26 season, which, okay, maybe isn't that much of a surprise. Everyone is kind of expecting these guys to eventually be traded, whether it's before the deadline or next offseason, given they don't fit the Bulls' long-term plans anymore. But still noteworthy nonetheless, because it likely means the Bulls are going to have to dump these guys for less than optimal value, as their hand will be forced to move them. This also means Lonzo Ball isn't getting extended. They would likely have to let him walk, although I say that, but I don't know, if Lonzo truly does come back as he did before, there is a world where the Bulls look to keep him. And I don't know, but crazier things have happened where they could keep Lonzo and look to find a sign and trade for Giddey next offseason, I should say. I don't think that's going to happen, but as we've talked about before, just based on what we saw in the preseason, there is an argument that having Ayo or Lonzo in the starting lineup to give that starting unit more defense might make more sense when you're so limited defensively with Vooch, Zach, Kobe, and Giddey as your starters. But anyway, I digressed a little there. The point I guess I'm trying to make here is, yes, the Bulls and Josh Giddey did not reach an extension, but they more than likely will in the offseason, and it's most likely that it's going to be a hefty contract that is going to raise some eyebrows when it comes out. And at that point, it really will mean the Bulls have fully committed to this new direction, this rebuild, youth movement, whatever you want to call it, because it'll mean the contracts of Zach and Vooch will need to be off the books by then, especially when the contracts for Ayo and Kobe are also going to be up for an extension, and for those guys, they're going to command much higher paydays than where they are now. But let me know what you guys think. Let me know in the comments. As always, be sure to subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.